I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission, Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Mr. Vice Chair, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming out this evening. We have an agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right. Up next, we have the review and approval of the June 17th meeting minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, on to substantive matters. We have a conditional use permit to allow a multifamily building in the CB Central Business District at 620 West Main, formerly the General Wayne Hotel, tax map number 45-2-58 by Robert W. Miller Jr., General Wayne Hotel LLC, representing Miller and Associates, Inc. I'll now turn it over to the capable hands of our staff for presentation.
Yes, good evening. This is the first of two applications tonight for the General Wayne Hotel. This first one is for that conditional use permit. And just quickly, we do have two conditional use permits on the agenda for tonight, so I'll just do the slide for you all at once. Conditional use permits do allow for a case-by-case review of uses which may be but are not always compatible with the neighboring uses. The use must be consistent with good zoning practice, be no more adverse to health, safety, or the comfort of persons living or working in the area than uses that are permitted by right in that district, and then be no more detrimental economically or otherwise to property or improvements in the surrounding area than uses generally permitted within that district. And with that, this application is for the former General Wayne Hotel, which is located on West Main Street, sort of sandwiched between the Good Shepherd Anglican Church, and then also the Reynold Hamrick Funeral Home and Cemetery, crematory. And it is the parcel that stretches from West Main Street back to Federal Street. A quick look at the front and rear of the former hotel. So the request tonight is to allow for a multifamily building in the CB district, which is our central business district. Multifamily buildings are permitted by CUP in this district. The applicants have plans to renovate the former General Wayne Hotel into 38 to 45 market rate apartments, which would be a mix of efficiencies and then 1 and 2 bedroom units. A quick look at the zoning of the surrounding area. As I noted, the property is in the CB district, and it is also within the downtown historic district. As far as the city's comprehensive plan's 2008 land use map, the subject property is in the downtown core area, and the comp plan does encourage residential development and conversions in this core downtown area, and makes a note that the success of the downtown as a destination for residents and visitors, along with it being a preferred business and residential location, is critical for the positive growth of Waynesboro. Staff therefore believes the CUP does comply with the city's comp plan. The CB district does not have parking requirements. However, the applicant is planning to provide some parking. They have leased 20 spaces in the lot across the street. There will also be parking provided along the alley side, which I'll show you here in just a moment. And then there is additional street parking that can be found on West Main Street, Federal Avenue, and then also Maple Avenue. The reason the CB district does not have parking requirements is because this district is intended to be a little bit denser in nature and therefore more walkable and less car dependent. There are a number of benefits to this in a core downtown area, including promoting that walkability and also reducing development costs, increasing the density in that core area, and also gives the private market the ability to decide what parking a project actually needs. And so quickly, this is that side alley that runs from West Main to Federal Street, and the applicant has indicated they'll be providing some parking somewhere along this stretch. They've also leased 20 lots in that parking lot across the street. And then there's also on-street parking that is available on Maple, West Main, and then Federal Street. There will be minimal traffic impacts in this area given the existing street network. It is completely built out in this area, and there's no, and this will not be changing with this potential rehabilitation into multi-use. The applicant did meet with Public Works as part of their due diligence process and determined that the existing infrastructure that is in place around the building is adequate, but there could be a need for an additional water connection for the sprinkler system for the building. And then finally, the project is not likely, due to the nature of the apartments and who they're likely to be targeted, to have a significant impact on the local school system. And so with that, staff is recommending approval. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff?
I'll save it for the developer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to open the public hearing into the conditional use permit to allow multifamily building in the CB Central Business District at 620 West Main Street, formerly General Wayne Hotel, tax map number 45-2-58, Robert W. Miller Jr., General Wayne Hotel LLC, representing Miller and Associates. Given the nature of our agenda this evening, we are going to be using the timer. I believe we have it set for 4 minutes. So when you speak, if you come up to speak on any item on the agenda, this or others, the little green light will go on when you start talking. The little yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds or something. How much time? 30 seconds left. And then when the red light goes on, please wrap up your remarks. That being said, is the applicant here on this, on the one that we're having the hearing on right now, and would they like to speak?
Yes.
Proceed, please. Just state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Jesse White. I'm business partners with Robin Miller and a partner in Miller and Associates. We've got the General Wayne under contract, and Alison did a really great job of encompassing the project that we're hoping to deliver here. I'd like to use my time to kind of give you a background of who we are. The way that we operate is that we are the ownership group, meaning we purchase the property, and we don't do merchant building, which is when people buy something and they sell it, they flip the apartment building. We're long-term holders. So as Robin likes to say, we buy things and hold them till we die. So that means we're going to be a long-term partner and investor in Waynesboro. Our company is also the developer. It's Miller and Associates. We specialize in historic renovation. We've got extensive experience in Richmond, Virginia, and then right down the road in Stanton. We've done the old Western State Hospital. We did the Stanton Steam Laundry, and we've just most recently done the Arcadia building right on the downtown Beverly Street. So I think total in Stanton, we've done somewhere over close to 200 apartments, probably 100 condos. We've done 49 hotel rooms. We're about to do 43 more. And in Richmond, we've built over 1,000 apartments, and we're in North Carolina as well. And the point I'm trying to make is that we're effective operators. We're good at what we do. What we tell you we're going to do, we're going to do it. We're going to do it when we tell you we're going to do it. And we will deliver high-quality housing units for downtown Waynesboro. So we are also the general contractors. That's another group called Horizon Construction. And we have been in operation for 20 years, and we specialize again in historic renovations. It's very nuanced. It's if you're building new construction, it's kind of easy to move a wall 1 foot, but when you've got a building that's been around since 1890, it's a little bit more strict. So we're very skilled in that. And then we have a property management company as well called Monroe Properties. We manage the properties, the lease up, the maintenance, and everything. So we control the entire life cycle of real estate deals. And again, we build them like we're going to own them forever, which means we do it right. We do it right the first time. And we're really excited about this opportunity. As I mentioned, we've had a big impact in Stanton, and we're really excited about the prospect of entering into Waynesboro. And we hope that the General Wayne is the first of many projects we do here. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you so much.
I saw in the application that you said there could be a range from 38 to 45. I was just wondering what could cause the discrepancy. Is it like the size of the units or
So
different amenities?
the design is, so we do everything based on the historic tax credit program, which has very strict regulations. At the state level, it's the Department of Historic Resources. At the federal level, it's the National Park Service. So we will go through many iterations of the design with them to preserve the historic integrity. So I wanted to be conservative in our estimate. I know that's kind of a wide gap, but sometimes they'll say, hey, we want to leave this space open to preserve some item. And so we might lose a unit, we might pick up a unit. So the reasoning behind that is really the design and the historic regulations.
Okay.
But my guess would be that we're going to be closer to the lower end of that, maybe 38.
But it wouldn't be less than 38.
I don't think so. Right now, as we have it planned, we're planning for 38.
Okay.
And, you know, we're in the process of, we've got it under contract, and we're going through the first review with the Department of Historic Resources, so I can't answer for them until I know for sure.
And these are listed at market price. Was there any intent to have like a couple units dedicated to affordable housing or?
So we don't tend to do affordable housing or income-based units, but what we say we deliver is sort of a workforce housing. You know, we're not going to put a pool in the backyard and charge $3,000 a month. We're trying to deliver economical rents so that people can live comfortably, have a nice apartment, and stay there for as long as they want.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of what those costs will be on those rentals from the one bedroom to the efficiencies to the two bedroom?
You know, I do not, but if you look at our company website, monroeproperties.com, and you look at the Stanton listings, I would think that they will be somewhere around that range, although we're looking for comparative properties in Waynesboro, and I don't see a ton that have been done in the downtown recently, so we don't have a good comp yet, so I can't give you a hard number. But, you know, if you look at our rent comps on our website, that'll give you a good idea.
What are they renting for in Stanton?
I think, you know, it really depends on the unit because they're historic units. They're not cookie cutter. You know, we might have one studio that's got two big windows. We might have one studio that's got less square footage. But I think, you know, a studio for 800 to 900 and then the one bedrooms and two bedrooms, it's really, I'm not quite sure yet, but 1,100, something around that range.
That was all the questions I had.
All right, we have any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you.
All right, do we have anybody signed up to speak at the public hearing?
We do. The first speaker signed up is David Geiger.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Geiger, address 701 Locust Avenue. I'm here representing the Waynesboro Historical Commission. As chair of the commission, we looked at the conditional use application. The only two areas we were concerned with was the demolition areas, and we have realized that those areas need to be demolished. Historical features of the General Wayne are being preserved, and that's a very good point with us. So in general, this project is a good start for Waynesboro, and we're happy to see that property being utilized in the way it's proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the last speaker we have signed up is David Golden.
David Golden. I'm the owner of the property. I'm the owner of the parking lot across the street from the property that's leasing them the spaces. I own several other developments here in Waynesboro and downtown Waynesboro. And this was a recruitment process that we pursued because as we looked at, once we acquired the property from Fishburne, how we could best utilize the premises, we felt like the best alternative was the multifamily housing. And we looked at partners or teaming up with someone to bring them to Waynesboro to assist. Robin Miller and Associates is an excellent candidate because what they've done in Stanton is extraordinary with what all the work, the uniqueness and versatility of the housing. And this is the reason why, and he understated, what they've been able to achieve in a number of other locations, Richmond, the Manchester area. They're in Elizabeth City, North Carolina working. And I think that's what we need in downtown Waynesboro for us to continue to thrive and the pace in which it's changed. And I like the extraordinary job the city government does, especially the staff members that, work here on a daily basis. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is all we have signed up for this one. I think there could be some confusion that there are two requests related to this property. So one is to have the conditional use permit for apartments, and the one we would be covering next is specifically to the demolition. But because of that confusion, I'm happy if there's anybody else that would like to speak for this, they can come up and state their name at this time. So is your name Charlotte Combs? Yeah, so you did sign up for the second one, but if you'd like to come up and speak at this one, that's fine also. Sure.
I just have a question. Hi, I'm Charlotte Combs at 244 Jocelyn Lane. And I just have a question about the parking. I go to Main Street United Methodist Church, and we kind of use that parking lot some for our church. And I was just wondering, the 20 spaces that are going to be leased out, are the people have to, in the apartments, will they have to pay for that parking, or will it just be completely reserved?
We haven't made that determination, but at this point, we're just reserving parking, working out a deal so that we can provide the tenants with parking. I do not know if they will be charged.
Like they'd have to buy a permit or something to park over there?
We really do it on a case-by-case basis. We've got plenty of apartment buildings where you rent and there's just, you get a parking spot. It's not, it's not, you pay an extra fee.
Yeah.
So at this stage, I don't really want to speak for anybody or any partners because we have not even, we've got, a lot of balls in there. And
Yeah.
we will, determine that at some point.
Now, do you all own the parking lot, or you just lease it from somebody else?
We're leasing it from Dave.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else not signed up that would like to speak on this particular application? All right, hearing no other people who would like to speak, I'm now going to close the public hearing as previously set forth. Do we have any further discussion?
No.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness as presented.
We're still on the we're up one on the CUPP. So we need to do the conditional use permit first.
Sorry, yes, I move that we approve the conditional use permit to allow a multifamily building in the CB Central Business District.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, next on the agenda, we have a certificate of appropriateness to demolish a portion, former kitchen of a contributing structure in the downtown historic district located at 620 West Main Street, formerly the General Wayne Hotel, tax map number 45-2-58 by Robert W. Miller, Jr., General Wayne Hotel LLC, representing Miller and Associates. Turn it over to staff.
Okay, and this application again is for the former General Wayne Hotel, and it is to demolish two portions of the building, the building itself is a contributing structure in the Downtown Historic District. The Downtown Historic District was established in 2001 and encompasses an area with about 42 contributing structures, and most of these were built between 1806 and 1951. The General Wayne Hotel itself was designed and built in 1937. It was added on to in the 1950s, and the big part of that was that four-story rear addition. It was then renovated and added on to in the 1960s, and based on research, that's likely when the one-story kitchen and hallway, which are the subject of the certificate of appropriateness, were added onto that building. And the overall building itself has had a significant impact on Waynesboro's recent history, but not so much the hallway and the kitchen portion that are the subject of the certificate of appropriateness tonight. So the request is to demolish the one-story kitchen on the building's eastern side and the one-story hallway on the building's western side. As we've just heard, the remainder of the building, the main structure, will be renovated into apartments, about 38 to 45, and it is contingent on that approval of the CUP application by City Council. And this renovation will be per the U.S. Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. The applicant will be using the federal and state historic tax credits for the rehab, and the use of these programs will require abiding by these standards, which provide the framework for the preservation and rehabilitation of historic buildings and properties. So the two areas that will be demolished are the kitchen area, that is the area right here, and then also that single-story hallway, which is right here on the building's western side. Again, the kitchen is located right here on the alley side, and that is that one-story building right here, brick addition on the back. The second is the one-story hallway on the opposite side of the building, which is extremely hard to see in the aerials. But this is it right here, sort of mid center of the building, right next to the church. And then a couple photographs showing the state of the two additions. This is the kitchen. The roof has partially collapsed. The floorboards have been compromised. There's water damage. Looks pretty not in very good shape. And then the hallway addition, brick foundation has been compromised. And again, it also has roof integrity issues. So when evaluating COAs, there are several evaluation criteria that need to be considered when making a decision. This is the first of 9, and the first is whether or not the building or structure embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, style, or method of construction, represents the work of a master, possesses high artistic values, or is associated with the events that made significant contribution to the broad local history, or is associated with historically significant persons. While the General Wayne itself does meet this criteria, it has had a significant impact on Waynesboro's history. The kitchen and hallway additions, less so. These were likely built during the renovation in the 1960s. They do not have any distinctive characteristics in building style or quality, and have had little impact, those individual pieces of the building, on the local history. Second criteria is whether or not the building or structure contributes visible architectural value to and provides historic continuity with properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and viewshed. The General Wayne Hotel itself is visible from West Main Street and Federal Avenue, and the kitchen addition is visible from Federal Avenue. The hallway addition is not particularly visible via West Main Street or Federal Avenue. And that's due to the proximity of the church and also the existing vegetation in the area. And so does staff's opinion that neither addition has significant impact or contributes to the historic continuity of the surrounding properties. Third criteria is whether the building or structure is of such age, authenticity, unusual or uncommon design, setting, workmanship, and materials, and whether such design, quality, and workmanship and traditional materials could be reproduced. Kitchen and hallway portions are not particularly distinct and could be reproduced using modern materials and workmanship to a greater quality. Fourth is specific plans for the site should the structure be demolished. And the applicant is intending, as we've heard, to renovate the original building of the General Wayne Hotel into apartments. Then whether it is economically or practically feasible, in the opinion of a qualified structural engineer and or building trades professional, to preserve or restore the structure. The applicants did have a review of the General Wayne Hotel building conducted by a licensed architect. The architect did recommend demolition of the kitchen and hallway portions due to the existing status of those pieces of the building, stating that demolition would allow for the restoration of the original exterior facades. The city's building official did make a site visit and confirm the conditions as stated by the applicants for the kitchen and hallway sections. Sixth criteria is whether the property owner can make alternative or economically viable uses of the property. The kitchen and hallway portions of the building would require significant renovation work to bring back up to standards and would likely be cost prohibitive. 7 is whether relocation may be appropriate or feasible as an alternative to demolition, and in this case, relocation, staff believes, does not provide any advantages over rehabilitation or demolition. And then whether the existing structure is suited to or can be adapted to a proposed change in land use. The applicant is seeking a CUP to turn the former General Wayne into apartments, and the building should be well suited to this purpose. And then finally, whether the structure or building is a contributing or non-contributing structure in the HPO district. In this case, the overall General Wayne Hotel is a contributing resource, but the subject here is those 2 one-story additions. And those 2 additions are not particularly historic. The main structure is, and that will be being preserved. And therefore, staff is recommending approval of this application. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a general comment. These packets that we're given as planning commissioners are available to the public. This one was 181 pages. I highly recommend the public pulling this up because tucked in, that's not being shared here, but it's in the packet, is a history of the General Wayne and of Mad Anthony. And it's fascinating. Including that the Eisenhowers were at the General Wayne as well as Elvis. So I highly recommend go on to the city site, pull that up, dig into somewhere page 60 or so, and just enjoy the next 10 pages of history. And I don't know if that came from the applicants or it came from city staffers, but that foundation was greatly appreciated and should be read and viewed by all of Waynesboro because it's a history of from whence we were named and the individual where our name came from. So a general comment, thanks for the extra meat and potatoes in the packet that you guys gave us this time.
Certainly.
All right, we're now going to open the public hearing onto the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the former kitchen and hallway of the contributing structure to the downtown historic district located as listed in the agenda. Public hearing is now open. Does the applicant have anything to add at this point?
All right, so one thing I just wanted to make very clear is that we won't do anything that's not within the standards of the Secretary of the Interior. If we do something that disqualifies us, we will not obtain tax credits, which would be detrimental. So we saw these 2 areas when we were going through our design. They looked like they were later additions. We're using our years of expertise. We're pretty confident that the Department of Historic Resources is going to agree with our request to demolish these areas. And of course, we need city approval as well. But if for whatever reason those demolition plans were not to be found to be in accordance with the standards, we wouldn't do it. So that's just one thing I like to make clear. We're going to do everything by the standards of the Secretary of the Interior for the tax credits. These 2 areas are, as you've seen, they're in pretty bad shape. There's also environmental issues in the kitchen, and we think that the cleanest, fastest, best way to deal with these areas is just to pull them out, and we think that doing so will remove structural issues, environmental issues, and then also, especially with that kitchen area, it will expose the original facade of the building. So we think it's kind of a win-win, and I just wanted to add that color, although the city has done a wonderful job with these applications, so we appreciate everything you did. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Do anybody sign up to speak on this?
The first person we have signed up to speak is David Geiger. Good, okay. The next person is David Golden. Okay. And then Charlotte Combs. Okay. That's all we have signed up.
All right. Do we have anybody who's not signed up who'd like to speak on this? All right. Hearing nobody else who wants to speak, we're going to close the public hearing as previously discussed. Do we have any further discussion?
I'm curious, the environmental issues you're talking about, I'm assuming since it was built in the 60s, it's asbestos?
There's more asbestos in there than you've ever seen.
Probably lead.
We do quite a few projects, so, yes.
No. I thought as much because with the age of the General Wayne, I don't think you're going to find much asbestos in the original structure. Probably a lot of horsehair and plaster.
Right, well, let's hope so.
All right, any other discussion? All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness to demolish a portion of the former kitchen, well, all of the former kitchen and the contributing structure in downtown for the one-story hallway.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, thank you so much. As a citizen of Waynesboro who works downtown, I'm excited that something's happening in this area, so. Next, we have a zoning map amendment for property owned by the Waynesboro School Board in the city of Waynesboro, located at 1200, 1100, and 1044 West Main Street, 325 Pine Avenue, 1017 West 12th Street, and 0 Poplar Avenue. Tax maps number 44-1-47-14, 44-3, lots A, F, G, H, and I, 44-4-8, lots 21 and 30, and 44-4-9, lots 1 through 16. Is that 1 through 16 inclusive? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes.
From RG5 General Residential and LB Local Business to CB Central Business. Staff.
Okay, yes, this is the first of 2 applications tonight for the high school and collective properties. And as I'm sure we all know, this property is located on West Main Street, and it is bordered by Pine Avenue, some of West 12th Street, and then South Poplar Avenue. So the applicants have applied for a rezoning of this larger property, and it includes the high school and the associated facilities, and this also includes the Waynesboro Schools Administration Building, and then also the building that houses the VPAS. Its current zoning is RG5, which is the general residential, RS5, which is the traditional residential, and then local business, and they're requesting rezoning to central business. This rezoning is being requested because it's needed to proceed with the second phase of the high school renovation. And this phase will include a media center, a new classroom wing, a connector building, a 1-story gym, and athletics complex. And the property's current zoning does not have enough flexibility, specifically regarding the area and dimensional standards that are required by the ordinance for building heights and then also setbacks. So that is the main high school building currently. This is the existing classroom wing. And then that's the school administration building and also the VPAS building right here. So its current zoning is LB, which is primarily that area in the parking lot, which I'll show here in just a moment. But this district is meant for smaller scale commercial, really meant to service those nearby neighborhoods, just smaller scale, close to neighborhoods. RG5 is the city's most flexible residential district. It allows for a variety of housing types, really getting at that sort of medium density residential use. And then finally, the RS5, which is our traditional residential, is much more traditional, small lot neighborhoods, primarily single family detached, but then the city does permit corner lot duplexes in that district as well. The proposed zoning is the central business district, and this is where the retail office and residential core of downtown is. It is denser in nature and encourages more intense development and that walkability factor, as I mentioned a minute ago. And it provides for that vital downtown economy with commercial, civic, cultural, entertainment, and residential uses. Just a quick look at the zoning map. The LB zoning is primarily that area of the parking lot on West Main Street. The majority of the property is zoned that RG5, and then you have this small little area of RS5 down in the corner. As far as the city's comprehensive plan's 2008 land use map, it does designate it as primarily institutional with a little bit of that downtown core area. The uses of the property will not be changing in this case. However, there has been a proffer volunteer that does limit the uses to the Waynesboro city schools and closely associated uses to help stem any concerns about what could potentially be relocated here in the future. It ensures it remains a Waynesboro public school use. Staff does believe this complies with the comp plan. So as I mentioned, with the property's current zoning, it is too restrictive regarding building heights and setbacks specifically. The RG5 and LB districts restrict building heights to 35 feet. The existing three-story classroom wing is about 50 feet tall. The new high school buildings will include a new three-story classroom wing and then also a three-story connector building that will be matching this height or potentially be slightly higher. Not very much higher, but slightly higher. And the CB district does allow buildings up to 100 feet tall. And so the applicant, and because buildings that are 100 feet tall aren't generally found in this particular section of West Main Street and would look very out of place, the applicants have included a voluntary proffer that would limit building heights to a total of 75 feet. So it allows them a little flexibility to go a little bit higher than 50 feet, but it does limit the building so they will not be the full 100 feet that would be allowed by the CB district by right. And then here's a quick look of what that would look like. You have the existing classroom main entrance here, and then you have that three-story connector building here, and then there's that new three-story classroom wing right there with the one-story media center fronting on West Main, and which should all roughly match the existing height of the building. So the second aspect is the setbacks. The current zoning for the RG5 district has a front setback requirement of 20 feet, while the LB district has a front setback requirement of 10 feet. The CD district does not have a setback requirement, and instead has that build to requirement. So you have to build to the back of the right-of-way instead of a setback requirement. This is where that second application after this one tonight comes in. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to modify this build to line requirement. The concept plans show the new high school buildings indicate that the media center will be set back 3 feet from West Main, while that new three-story classroom wing will be set back about 17 feet. So it kind of falls in the middle of what's required by the CB district and by the RG5 district. And you can see that this is provided by the applicants, concept. This is that media center right here, has about 3 foot setback from the back of the right-of-way, and then the main three-story classroom wing is set back about 17 feet from the right-of-way. And then here again, there's a couple renderings of what that would actually look like. This is the media center here, and that three-story classroom wing right here. And then finally, as I noted previously, the CB district does not have parking requirements because this district is meant to be denser in nature and more walkable, less car dependent. However, the high school is located approximately half mile from Waynesboro's main downtown core area. And parking is more of a concern in this case because of the need for parking for staff, students, and then any events that the high school may have. Since there are no parking requirements in the CB district, the applicants have volunteered to maintain their existing parking spaces, which totals 247 spaces going forward. So there will be no reduction in parking on the site. And so finally, staff is recommending approval with the proffers as volunteered by the applicants. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Can you go back to plat map that showed the property line and or the map, overhead map that showed so that's the 3 feet setback is from the edge of the property line. It'll be basically 3 feet from the sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
essentially.
That's the way it looked. I just wanted to double check.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for staff?
Now for staff, for Dr. Castle. The voluntary proffer to limit the height to 75 feet. I'm just going to assume that that had no impact on the design.
That would be correct, Mayor. It's my understanding that representative from the engineer firm is here. Generally, we're building back at the same height. It could be slightly over the 50 feet, and there may be some mechanical units, a cooling unit or something on top of that. We would not expect to approach the 75 feet. I would think 55 at most. Would that be generally accurate?
Okay.
It would be close on the 50.
Thank you.
And there's no notion that you're, unnecessarily with that proffer prohibiting some future upward growth, literally upward growth.
I would not expect, sir, so I'm not the structural engineer, but I think that would involve a foundation and
Right.
a lot of issues from the ground up, so I don't think we would be able to just add
Yeah.
stories to that.
Right.
No,
Sure.
I believe this is what we're going to have for the next few decades
Got it.
anyway.
All right.
Other questions that I could answer? While I have the podium, I would like to thank the city for their work, the staff at zoning and building, and just the city overall for their cooperation with this project. It's a large project and a lot to it, so thank you.
Does the new buildings affect the location of the football field?
It will not. It will be close. I don't know the exact measurement there, but it will not affect the football field. And there are we do know of other locations that have a similar distance from the end of the field. There will be a fence between the field and the existing area, like there is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cass.
Just to comment that this is, I believe, one of the top 10 oldest operating high schools in the state of Virginia that was originally built during the Great Depression. Kudos to city staff, city leadership for getting the funding for the second phase for Dr. Castle and his staff. This is just a celebration, and I'm excited to see this happen.
All right, we're going to open thank you. We're going to open the public hearing for the zoning map amendment rezoning for the property owned by the Waynesboro School Board and the City of Waynesboro as listed in the agenda, because I'm not going to repeat all of those numbers and letters for all of you. Is there anybody who's signed up? And I'm going to screw them up again, so.
Yeah, no one has signed up to speak.
All right, is there anybody who's not signed up who would like to speak on this application? Sure. Come on up and state your name and your address, please.
We are Kat and Kaylor Kennedy, and we live on Pine, right across from the VPAS building. So I kind of mentioned briefly, the VPAS building and the admin building are not included in anything that's going to have renovation or anything, but they were included in the rezoning. So I think we just want to clarify, they're not being touched right now, but the rezoning could offer the possibility of that in the future. So we were just trying to clarify what that might look like.
So with the proffer that the property would be schools and/or school-related uses, then that's all that can exist there. So it is that those properties are being rezoned to central business, but if anyone came and said, I want to purchase that building and renovate it to do something else, that would be the check that city staff would have of like, no, you're not a school or a school-related use, so you cannot do that. So that is the protection in place that kind of keeps everything on that. And the hope was just to keep the zoning consistent across the entire property, and knowing that that would remain as school uses is the proffer that's in place.
Kat Kennedy, 365.
My only question is more like the build to, right now at VPAS, there's a huge lawn and there's, I don't know, 20, 30 feet between the sidewalk and the building.
Sure.
And I guess we're just kind of concerned about future plans. Are we planning on putting a 3-story building there in the future? Is that something that's on the, you know, on your minds? So I guess I think that's what we're kind of asking about.
So there is no plans for that now. But, I mean, you raise a good point that if someday that building was to be torn down and built back as a school-related use, then it would fall within the zoning, then maybe they could, you know, it would encourage that. So that is a good point. If that is something that the commission is concerned about, I'm sure we could think of a way to preclude that.
As a resident, I love this. I love what I'm seeing with the school, and I love that on Main Street. I just don't want that up on, like, right there when I cross the street. Like, we moved the bus stop down the street, which is great, but I would love to keep that just more small town, school kind of town vibe, and without having to be that urban in the residential area. That was our concern. But thank you for all of the work that you guys have done. I'm kind of blown away. This is my first meeting, so thank you for doing all of the things that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do think with our once Alisan covers the next request, I think it's gonna allay some of those concerns, and we can talk through it, but I think that will cover that. Because the next one would be for the conditional use permit to say that nothing has to abide by the build to line, and you could add a condition that you wouldn't want buildings within, you know, not just here, but anywhere on that property to build to the build to line, if that makes sense. But it might be helpful if she gives that presentation, and then we could go back to it.
So, do we want to vote on this now, or do we want to wait and hear the next presentation and then vote on both of them together? Or do we want to, are we ready to vote on this?
I'm ready to vote on this.
All right, then do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the zoning request.
A second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion
I
carries.
abstain.
Oh, thank you. Please note that Stuart abstained. Okay, next we're going to talk about the build-to line requirements. This is a conditional use permit, conditional use to permit the modification of the build-to line requirement in CB Central Business District for property owned by the Waynesboro School Board in the city of Waynesboro, located at 1200, 1100, and 1044 West Main Street, 325 Pine Avenue, 1017 West 12th Street, and 0 Poplar Avenue. Tax map numbers 44-1-47-14, 44-3 lots AFGH, and I, 44-4-8 lots 21 through 30, and 44-4-16 lots 1 through 16. Thank you. Take it away, staff.
Okay, yes, so this is the conditional use permit to modify that build-to-line requirement for the high school properties. So as you just heard, the applicants have applied for rezoning of the property to central business, and that central business district does have that 70% minimum build-to-line requirement. And the second phase of the high school renovation will not be able to meet this requirement. So the applicants have requested to modify that requirement in the CB district, and it is contingent on the approval of that rezoning application. So quickly, that build-to line requirement is the area running along the property line in which the building facade must be built, and this is generally on the back of that right-of-way. So in this case, it'll, generally speaking, be at the back of the sidewalk that runs along the high school property. And its intent is to create a consistent street wall and frame the street to create aesthetically pleasing spaces in Waynesboro. You can really see this impacted on the block of West Main Street, or Main Street as it runs from Wayne Avenue down to Arch Avenue. You can see how the buildings hug the sidewalk, the street, really creating that sort of traditional, that core downtown feeling. So this is the section of the zoning ordinance where those requirements are found. It's section 98-2.6.3.a, non-residential development standards in non-residential districts. And that does have that 70% build-to line requirement. And here again is a quick look of the area zoning, which is that LB or G5 and RS5 currently, and potentially be CB in the future. Then as far as the city's comprehensive plans 2008 land use map, in this particular case, the uses of the property would not be changing with this CUP request. It will remain Waynesboro school uses, and this is consistent with the comp plan designation. And so to get a sense of the existing development on West Main Street, as you come down this stretch of West Main, it is more of a traditional sort of smaller commercial development style. You do have buildings set back from the street with parking lots in the front, along the sides. You have very few buildings that are built right up onto the back of the city's right-of-way. The one building that is the closest is this building right here, which I believe the city schools are in half of it, and then a welding company is in the other half, and they are the closest to the back of the right-of-way as any of the buildings are. And the proposal for the new buildings the city has will be very close, or will mirror closely sort of what this building looks like for potential parts of it. Here again, this is the view down Main Street as you're heading east. Got Klein's on the corner here and the high school over here. You can see the buildings are set back from the street there. And then the opposite direction here is that building that I mentioned a minute ago, the welding supply company. You can see that it is closer to the back of the sidewalk than other buildings along this corridor. So waiving this requirement will potentially let the high school match more buildings in the corridor than requiring it to be built up back against the curb. And then here again is that concept plan we were looking at a few moments ago that shows that one-story media center, this will be the closest to the sidewalk with that 3-foot setback, and then the 3-story classroom wing will be set back a bit farther at the 17 feet. And then another look at what that might look like from the ground level. And with that, staff is recommending approval of this CUP modifying the build 2 line requirements for the high school properties. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And one thing that I was thinking about, so this portion of the high school renovation, that would be a 3-foot setback. So that's why you would be granting the conditional use permit, because it wouldn't be meeting the build 2 line. But you could add a condition on the conditional use permit that says all buildings fronting the street where VPAS and the
Pine.
yeah, so Pine, if you said the setback for any new building on Pine will not be closer than, what is the standard that exists today on the existing zoning? Is it 20 feet or 10? For RG5 is 20. Wonder if they meet that currently.
Sure, they're setting back.
Okay. So if the school board was comfortable and schools were comfortable with that, you could approve the conditional use permit and just say that you want to add a condition that no new building fronting Pine would be any or the front setback for any buildings fronting Pine would be 20 feet. If that was a concern for the commission.
Probably what we should do is see if we have questions for staff, and then maybe see if Dr. Castle's willing to weigh in on whether or not that's something that they might consider, or if they need more time to think about that, and we need to table this so they can think about that, because I do think the schools are probably entitled to spend some time thinking about what that impact that might have on whatever their uses, future uses, planning uses might be for that space. But for now, so with that said, for now, do we have any other questions for staff?
I have a question, just thinking out loud. Would there be the opportunity to approve it as it exists tonight, and then if there's the opportunity to provide a voluntary proffer as was done previously, would that be amenable?
So I don't want to speak here with staff, but I think the only hook we've got to impact that is with this CUP. right?
Yep.
Once the CUP, I mean, certainly if that's something that the school wanted, if the school wanted to do it that way, with it as a voluntary proffer, as opposed, schools want to do it that way as a voluntary proffer, as opposed to the,
So, yeah, so really, since it's
But-
not a rezoning, it would
Right.
be a condition of the
Right.
conditional use permit.
I mean, they'd basically be reapplying with that as a part of it. I don't think there's, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see a difference in us just deciding that. Again, presupposing, I mean, obviously we want to address this concern, but I also think the schools are probably, I want to give them a fair opportunity to think about this and make sure that we don't hamstring, I mean, if they want to do something there in the future, I just want to make sure everybody's got enough notice that we can make an informed decision. So, all right, no further questions for staff. Excellent. We're going to open the public hearing on the conditional use permit as listed in the agenda. I don't know, Dr. Castle, if you're prepared to speak on that issue, or if you would like to, for us to, and I don't know how potentially waiting for another meeting might impact the school's plans with respect to approval of this, because we don't want to, what I also don't want to do is put you 30 or 60 days behind the construction of a new school wing.
There is some sense of urgency in moving forward with this plan because we are trying to meet a number of deadlines. I don't want to speak for the school board without the opportunity to consult with them regarding this, although I do that often, obviously. I don't perceive that there would be an issue with that type of adjustment for, to offer that as a proffer, maybe utilizing the existing setback or the 20-foot setback that the state suggested. Certainly, there are no plans now to do that, to build on that property. And I'm also assuming that if that were to be the case in the future, someone could approach the planning commission and council for the request of a conditional use permit at that point. So I guess I'm not sure of that process. I need to understand if that's something that can happen tonight or if that's going to delay us till next month's meeting.
So I think what I feel like we might be prepared to do is to approve the conditional use permit with the added condition that that any new construction on Pine, on the lot on Pine, must meet the 20-foot setback set forth in the, must meet a 20-foot setback.
Front
And then I think you're exactly right. If there was some intent to change, if the school decides in 10 or 15 years that, hey, we want to build a shiny new whatever there, that you could come back and seek an additional conditional use permit to modify this conditional use permit that would allow notice and comment just like this, and either approval or
I think we're comfortable. I'm certainly comfortable with that, and I'm going to say for the school division that we are. The intent here is obviously Main Street, but because of the nature of the
Right.
lots, it has encompassed Pine.
And this recommendation, if they made it, would go to city council at their meeting on the 21st for like a final say. So you would have some time also to relay that information to your board as well.
Okay. So
Would the city council put that condition on top of the, if we just approved the permit as requested, and then the council can add that language in if they see fit. I don't feel compelled to add any additional language to the motion as recommended by city staffers at this moment. And if that gives freedom of time for the council to, if they want to weigh in on it, and at that moment in time, so be it.
Yeah, so that is definitely up to you all. You're the recommending body to city council, so you would be recommending that it either be approved as is or recommending that it be approved with that language. But the ultimate decision is theirs, the city council's.
I hear what you're saying about letting council do it. I think that we've had the benefit of hearing from the folks here tonight who have this specific concern, and I think if it has, as far as we can foresee in this moment in time, no additional impact on the schools or on this particular use, I don't see any reason for us not to include it tonight. just because we've heard from these folks and they've taken the time to come to our hearing, and we've all discussed it. And then if Dr. Castle, it turns out this doesn't work for some reason, I'm sure he planned to be there for the city council meeting anyways, and he can let the council know.
I do.
So that would be just my observation.
Yes, thank you.
And just for clarification, so you're saying add the additional language tonight that we would want?
To our, I mean, that would be my thought, is we have the folks who have taken the time to come and talk about it here tonight. You know, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna materially change any other plans. It's not gonna prejudice the schools in any ways. So, I mean, I think
I agree.
I would be comfortable going ahead and doing that here tonight. And then council can decide if they like our recommendation or not. And they can, because I think they're not bound by, I mean, if they say, hey, we're not interested, so be it.
Yeah, they could approve it without that recommended
right.
condition. Yeah.
But I think it gives us an opportunity to set the language, set the right parameters for the language while we're having an informed discussion about it.
Agreed, for me, personally.
All right. Okay, is there anybody else? Well, I think I opened the public hearing, right? I opened the public hearing. Thank you, Dr. Castle, for participating in Q&A. Sorry to put you on the spot. Is there anybody else who would like to speak that's not signed up on at the public hearing before I close the public hearing? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Oh.
Sorry. Keep that open for just a second. Ryan Bossart, Valley Engineering. I'm working on the high school edition with Dr. Castle and school board. So when we are looking at that additional language, how would that impact, and this isn't a part of the plan, but I'm just trying to think, you know, for the school board here, to an addition to one of those two buildings, would the language be, you know, if it's a new structure and there were to be an addition, and let's say that building is currently 19 feet off the property line. I don't know what it is tonight. I'm not sure. So I just want to make sure that we take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, there could be several ways to do it. It could be a set number. It could be any new building or addition to a building existing on Pine could be no closer than the front facade currently. And then that would be a way that you could, you know, add on, because we don't know what the distance is today.
Right.
Sure.
Yep. I think that's my only thing to add there.
Sure, I appreciate that. I think that's probably a good idea to say, since we don't have the benefit of knowing exactly what the number is, maybe say
It would just be no closer than the front facade
existing.
exists today.
Yeah, because based on what we heard from the folks that commented, I think that's the concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, now, going once, going twice, we're gonna close the public hearing. As listed in the agenda, do we have a motion? All right, so we have a motion as previously discussed. Were you good with that?
Yeah, so
right.
I would plan that it would be the, any new building or addition on an existing building fronting on Pine would be no closer than the current structures.
All right,
Closer to the road.
So the motion is to approve the conditional use permit as set forth with that added condition.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Do we need to have any further, sorry, I skipped further discussion. Do we need to have any further discussion? It's been a long week. I'm sorry, y'all. I know, and it's Tuesday. It's been a long couple weeks. Do we need to have any further discussion before we vote?
No further discussion.
All right, all in favor for the motion as set forth? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
And I will abstain.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate everybody's willingness to work through that. Hopefully, we've addressed some of your concerns as residents over there. All right. Not last, but next on the agenda, we have a certificate of appropriateness to demolish a contributing structure in the Tree Streets Historic District located at 737 Walnut Avenue, tax map number 54-4-35-9 by Karen and Timothy Cook. And we're going to hear from staff first.
Okay, so this is a certificate of appropriateness for 737 Walnut Avenue, which is a contributing structure in the Tree Streets Historic District. So the Tree Streets Historic District was also established in 2001, and it now encompasses an area with about 595 structures, 454 of which are contributing. And the majority of these buildings are residential and were constructed between 1890 and 1950. The applicant has requested to demolish the house located at 737 Walnut. It requires extensive repairs involving multiple aspects of the building and also includes asbestos abatement. They do have plans to rebuild a similarly sized house that is compatible with the existing neighborhood. So this is the excerpt from the the nomination form for the Historic District. 737 Walnut can be found on the lower side of the page. And it just consists of one sentence, one-story house of synthetic sided frame construction with asphalt singled gabled roofs, double-hung windows, and several additions. So this particular property is located on the corner lot of Walnut Avenue as it meets 16th Street. It is this is the main Walnut Avenue, and there's this sort of alley that comes over, and then Walnut Avenue continues down here, and this is the location of the current house. Look at exterior photos. This is the view of the house from Walnut Avenue, the side of the house as you go down here, the rear of the house, and then some interior photographs. This is in, I believe, the basement. You've got some asbestos down here. There's also asbestos that's been found in the kitchen area, along with the what they're calling the stucco scratch coat on the exterior of the original structure. A couple of views of the crawl space. And this is photographs of repairs needed in the roof, the ceiling area of the house. And as before, there are those 9 criteria that need to be evaluated when considering certificate of appropriateness applications. The first is whether or not that building or structure embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, style, or method of construction. Represents work of a master, possesses high artistic values, or is associated with events making a significant contribution to the area's history. In this particular case, the architect is unknown, and the house is not associated with any significant local event or historically significant persons. It has been added onto over the years and has only been used as a residence. Second criteria is whether or not the building or structure contributes visible architectural value to and provides historic continuity with properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and the view shed. So in this section of Walnut Avenue, there are 3 houses total on the block. And all 3 of those houses are listed as contributing structures within the Tree Streets Historic District. The houses on the opposite side of Walnut Avenue actually front on Maple rather than Walnut. And Walnut itself, these are the other 2 houses that are located on Walnut Avenue. This is on the upper end, on the corner, along that little alleyway that leads to this part of Walnut. So this is 705 Walnut. This is 721 Walnut. 721 Walnut is actually a grandfathered quadplex, I believe. And then this is the view of 737 Walnut from the street. It is visible from Walnut Avenue as you head down to 16th Street down here. As you can see, though, it does have extensive landscaping and is only sort of seasonally visible from 16th Street due to that landscaping. This is looking up towards the house, which is located behind the trees here, from 16th Street. So So the third criteria is whether the building or structure is of such age, authenticity, and unusual or uncommon design, setting, workmanship, and materials, and whether those materials and workmanship could be reduced using traditional methods. This house is not particularly distinct architecturally, and a house of similar greater quality could be reproduced using modern building methods and materials. And then specific plans for the site should the structure or building be demolished, and the architectural compatibility of those plans and uses with the properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and view shed. So in this case, the applicants are intending to build a new house on the lot. The house would be sited slightly southeast, so a little closer to towards 16th Street, and the location of the current house would be landscaped to create a side yard between 721 and then 737 Walnut Avenues. And the new house, per the applicants, would be about 1,800 square feet and would allow for single-level living. The design of the new house would be based on the early 1900s cottages and bungalows, which would include an entry porch, deep eaves, a masonry chimney, and a traditional 12-12 roof pitch with dormers. And the exterior features would include fiber cement siding, architectural asphalt shingle roofing, fiberglass or metal-clad windows, stone accents, and then traditional paint colors on the home's exterior. These are two examples provided by the applicant of what they might build back onto the site. Staff believes the proposed redevelopment is architecturally compatible with the existing neighborhood and would recommend conditioning the certificate of appropriateness approval on the site's redevelopment according to what the applicants have said they will do. Criteria 5 is whether it's economically or practically feasible in the opinion of a qualified structural engineer or building trades professional to preserve or restore the structure. The applicants did have the house evaluated by a Class A general contractor, and there are extensive repairs required, and this would include asbestos abatement, roof repairs, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC upgrades, among other things. And it would be estimated to cost around $215,400. This would not include interior cosmetic fixes such as fixtures, appliances, cabinetry, other things to get it up to what the applicants wish. The sixth criteria is whether the property owner can make alternative economically viable uses of the property. This home is located in a residential neighborhood and can only be used as a residence per zoning. And 7, whether relocation may be appropriate and feasible as an alternative to demolition, and staff does not believe in this case it provides any advantages or rehabilitation or demolition. Whether the existing structure is suited to or can be adapted to a proposed change in land use. There is no land use change with this application being proposed. And then finally, whether it is a contributing structure within the HPO district, and 737 Walnut Avenue is contributing structure within the Tree Streets Historic District. And so with that, staff is recommending approval and suggests the following motion that the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the contributing structure located at 737 Walnut Avenue in Waynesboro in the Tree Streets Historic District be approved with the condition that the replacement structure has the architectural aesthetic based on the early 1900s cottages and bungalows, and includes those design elements like the entry porch, the deep eaves, and the masonry chimney. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicants are also here tonight.
So I have a couple questions. Would the compliance with that architectural, aesthetic, et cetera, that'd be up to you guys to make sure that whatever they would build back there conforms with that? Yes. Staff would review that at that point. I noticed on both of the pictures that they provided of potential things they could build, they both had metal roofs, and the proposed, at least their proposal suggested shingle. Is that something that conforms or doesn't conform with other historic structures in that area? I tend to think of these older houses generally as having metal roofs, but I don't know if that's something, if I maybe the way to ask this is, if I had a house like this that was a contributing structure in the tree streets and I wanted to take the metal roof off and put a shingle roof on it, would I have to get, so that's something that they could do without review?
Right.
Okay. All right, I think those were my questions. Do we have other questions?
I have a question. Being that two items on the agenda tonight were both in historic or historically significant, were the conditions that were placed on both somewhat from a general conformance standpoint by like a set of rules, or is it by a by-case situation?
They're looked at on a case-by-case,
Okay.
application-by-application basis.
Okay, so this one in particular didn't have to be reviewed by like a architectural review board. Staff was able to do that.
Yeah, so the city does not have an architectural review board. So what we do with these applications is we look at what is defined in the historic district. You know, what did they say were the qualities and standards of the construction? What made it historically significant? So some you'll notice in those districts, they might have a really long, 3 or 4 paragraphs going into all the details. Some, like this structure, it might be a sentence. That isn't always telling, but often it is to the extensiveness or the contributing factors. And then we as staff go through those 9 criteria. We share with the applicant that the purpose of going through this exercise is to make sure something gets built back that does fit within the area. And so they're working with an architect that proposed certain guidelines, and staff kind of just accepted those as they were proposals of what they wanted to build. They're flexible enough that I think, it's not tying them to either of those 2 options shown. But just kind of reading this motion, it would at least give us the ability as staff working with our building department to kind of identify, does it meet, most of these standards?
And to what extent does a building get suggested for a certificate of appropriateness versus if it's that dilapidated, then it's just, you don't have to have a certificate of appropriateness?
So since I've been here, I think there have been 2 that I can think of 2 that we've done, and one might not have even been in a historic district, the brick bank. Okay, yeah, I think only one. So it's not extremely common. I am not the expert on that. I'd be happy to get our building official here sometime to speak about that. The one that was kind of recently approved in the Port Republic neighborhood and didn't require, because of its condition, we didn't take it through the COA process. Our building official did put together kind of a big document that he went out and took pictures and evaluated it and reasons why. But I'd have to get him here to kind of speak on, what are some of those differences he's looking at for those. Certainly it's a structural and kind of imminent safety issue, or if you were to try to build on or change or alter that feels like there's no path forward within the building code to have that be possible, is my understanding, but I'm not a contractor.
So if I have a contributing historic structure, and I just let it get so dilapidated that it's about to fall down, I can just take it down without a certificate of appropriateness based on that review?
So, there is a portion within our ordinance that talks about requiring property owners to kind of keep up historic districts.
Right.
But that kind of falls in with all of the other property maintenance responsibilities within the city. And kind of to what degree and level of enforcement our elected officials would like to see, and how they would like to direct us. So yes, certainly there could be properties that are not well taken care of, and then at a certain point become a problem. Our hope is that we catch those.
Sure.
But then what teeth we have to really force owners to do things is just definitely things we could bring to the table to talk about, like, what is the city doing? What could we be doing more? This is what that would mean, some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see my concern just is with equitable treatment between ones that we can save and people who put in the effort. And then, and I'm not saying the applicants are responsible for the state of the building, to be clear, as it currently sits, but certainly we don't want to create a situation where there's an incentive to avoid this process by letting a building become so dilapidated. Anyways, just an observation. Any additional questions for staff?
Can you go back to the pictures a minute, Alisan, of the interior of 737? And when was this when was this house actually built
I believe
originally?
it was built around 1937?
1930.
1930, okay.
Go back one more. All that is added after that because they weren't using asbestos in the 30s. So and that pipe insulation has never been on a pipe, except for one or two pieces that I can see. That house has been renovated extensively. That's where you're finding the asbestos at.
Yeah,
That is now the cost for the asbestos removal and demo, once you abate a certain amount of that asbestos, you can dispose of that house as regular construction debris. Did that estimate take that into account?
Yes.
Okay. And it's still 215,000?
The asbestos was about
39, 35.
the full, in the supporting packet is
Oh.
that information.
Are there neighbors? It's unfortunate David Geiger left as the representative of the Historical Society, because I would have been fascinated. When I saw him here, I was like, all right, he's going to be speaking on this. Because I'd be fascinated on their opinion on this, because I struggle to make a decision without hearing some of the neighbors' response, nor do I know if there's other people in the public that have requested to speak.
we do have one person signed up to speak. I know we fielded a couple calls about it. We did not receive any emails. I didn't take any of the calls, but I'm not sure if anyone was adamantly for or against.
Most were just seeking information about what was happening to the structure.
But we do have one person signed up to speak.
Yeah. So do we have any additional questions for staff? All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing into the certificate of appropriateness to demolish a contributing structure in the Tree Streets Historic District located at 737 Walnut Avenue, tax map number 54-4-35-9 by Karen and Timothy Cook. And I think the applicants are here. Somebody representing the applicants are here. If there's anything that you'd like to add to staff's presentation, we'd be happy to hear from you at this point. Please step up. Are you Mr. Cook?
Yes, I'm Timothy Cook.
Okay.
Thank you. Initially, we wanted to, our plan was, when we bought the house, was to renovate it. But the more we had an inspector, structural engineer, and our architect here, Jeff Spees, the more problems that we saw. And Jeff can speak better to those problems than I can. But there were some, the renovations that were made to the house over the years caused some structural problems. There's no record that they were, that there was done by any kind of code that they applied for. So, I really wanted to keep the house, but I don't, even though it doesn't seem, if you saw the house, it doesn't seem of very much significant historic, there's no look to it that seems historically significant, to me anyway. It seems like there's a lot of add-ons and But I do think it just would be too much to renovate it because of all the problems that it would just cause a fortune. And I do think a new house within the integrity of the existing houses, the historic houses too, would be much better. And I think it would be a lot cheaper. But not only that, I think it would be much better and much more livable. Anyway, here's Jeff.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't expect to speak tonight, but thank you.
Well, thank you for,
Good evening, thank you. My name is Jeff Steese. I'm an architect in Charlottesville, Virginia. Tim and Karen brought me in to look at it as we began to walk around the house. The question always kept coming up, is this the point where we tear it down? And I said, no, let's keep going. But as Tim said, as we began to explore the house and look at the various components, we realized there's a lot more damage here than is showing up in a couple of photographs. To the point about the asbestos, one of the pictures in the presentation is the original boiler, as far as we can as far as we can tell. It's a 1930s boiler. That's what's heating the house. All of the piping that comes out of that boiler and spreads throughout that crawl space basement area is all covered in asbestos. This is the pile that was left over after they finished installing it everywhere. But the other two photographs, we also identified chrysalis asbestos in the mastic in the kitchen area. And the original house, as it's noted in the Historic District application, was covered in a synthetic product. It turns out that synthetic product was stucco that had asbestos embedded in the brown or the scratch coat, which you can see. This actually is a photograph of the old tar paper that's just dissolved and come away up in the attic, and you can see the lath with the what we call the scratch coat. It's that first layer of stucco that goes on. It kind of fills in the voids, and you build on top of it, and you get finer as you go. But that layer all around the existing house has asbestos in it. So everywhere we're going to interface with that, whether it's replacing the old vinyl siding, which is cracking and falling apart, or replacing the windows that need to come out, or redoing the trim that's rotted, everywhere we touch, we're going to be touching asbestos. And at some point, you think, wow, how do we do that safely, both for the occupants, for the workers, and for the neighbors? Everywhere the company that drilled and tested holes on the interior, the perimeter of the house, we found that asbestos coating everywhere except one wall. On the back of the house, which faces Walnut Avenue, where an addition was put on, apparently without a building permit, they removed that asbestos. What they did with it, I don't know. Were they wearing masks? I don't know. But they certainly created a very unsafe situation for themselves and the occupants at the time. So what we'd like to do is renovate the house, bring it up to code. There are electrical problems. We need to replace the boiler. There is no air conditioning. There's no insulation, really to speak of. Nothing meets codes. The windows all need to be replaced. And then the final piece of this is the roof. So we took several contractors up into the attic, which is non-habitable because there's no stairway up there. It's a pull-down ladder. Somebody attempted to renovate the attic at one point and put in windows to turn it into habitable space, but it doesn't meet egress. It doesn't meet the fire code at all. What they did was they compromised the entire integrity of the roof system. What they had up there originally was a ridge board. So you have a single ply and you have rafters that meet and they butt up against that ridge board, and you put a horizontal member to tie the bottoms of those rafters together, and you make what's effectively a truss. You make a triangle. That transfers the load from the snow and the roof, the dead load, down through the exterior walls. When they took those rafters off and replaced them with smaller dimensional lumber that, number one, doesn't meet code for its size and its span, and they didn't line them back up so that they were at opposing sides on the ridge board. In the inspection report, the inspector noticed that there weren't enough collar ties up there, but he didn't tell you why, and that's because they staggered all of the rafters. There's no way to support that roof at this point, so they've completely compromised the structural integrity. Around the dormers in the upstairs attic, where they took off the sheathing, in places they put back an insulated sheathing product. I was able to identify that product, go to the website, and on page 3 of the installation guide it says this is not a structural sheathing. So there's no sheathing on the outside of the dormers. There's no shear capacity, none of it meets code. Where they replaced all of the windows in the dormers, there are no jack studs, also known as trimmers. There are no king studs, there are no headers for those windows. All of those are load-bearing walls. So I have no structural capacity anywhere left in the roof. So every builder we took up there to look at that roof all said the same thing. We've got to tear the roof off and do it over again. So we're looking at a considerable amount of structural work, both in the attic, but also there's some work down in the crawl space. The other issue about the crawl space is, if you saw in one of the photographs, down in the crawl space, we have exposed bedrock, which we can't effectively seal. I can't really use that. All the mechanical equipment's down there, which it shouldn't be. It doesn't meet code. If we're going to put in a new system, I can't put it down there because there's really no way to seal off that bedrock and deal with the moisture issues that are coming from hydrostatic pressure from uphill. We are downhill on Walnut Avenue, as you saw in the photographs. So at some point you realize there is no way to renovate this structure, bring it up to modern building code standards, and make it safe for the occupants. Not without spending exorbitant amounts of money. And even at that point, when you do that, the owners will not have like a ground floor living. The bathroom is too tiny to be called accessible, or for retiring in place, which is what most of my clients want these days. They all want ground floor living. It makes perfect sense, and it's great for long-term future generations. Even if we do all this work and spend all this money, we're still not going to get there.
I'm just curious, is the house balloon construction?
It's one story.
Oh.
So it may be, but it's not a balloon in the true sense that it would go up 2 stories
Okay.
and not have blocking within the walls, as far as I know.
All right, do we have other questions for the applicant or the architect? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Who do we have signed up to speak?
Kurt Lilly is signed up to speak.
Kurt Lilly, 649 Walnut. Just about everything you've been talking about is stuff I've dealt with for 6 years. So welcome to the neighborhood, the restoration game. One thing I would remind you, the way you get a 150-year-old house in a neighborhood is by not tearing down a 90-year-old house in the neighborhood. That said, I understand the situation. What I didn't want to see was a house with vinyl siding or stucco go up in the neighborhood where it's stuck out like a sore thumb. And it looks like they're planning on doing something that will blend in good, and that would be great. I don't know how you enforce that, but I would love it if there was a good review process that would make sure that that does happen. And I guess that's all I got, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have anybody who is not signed up who would like to speak? All right, hearing nobody else who'd like to speak, we're going to close the public hearing as listed in the agenda at this time. Do we have further comment?
I guess my general concern is that a certificate of appropriateness is being used to avoid renovation costs. And as a result of that, the future fear then becomes, could someone purposely buy a house in a historic district that could be renovated and then say, well, I don't want to because it might be a little bit too much than I thought I was getting into, and then want to tear it down. In the packet, it seems like most of the structural, well, there was no hint of structural damage. Most of it was cosmetic. So I guess that would be my general concern with.
Well, looking at those pictures that Alisand showed right there, and having been in construction for 40 years, all I can say is you're a brave man to go up in that attic. 'Cause I saw where them rafters were cut and there were no collar ties on that. That house is well beyond what anybody would consider renovatable, if that's even a word.
I mean, so I share your concern about, well, maybe to put a little finer point on what my concern is this twofold. this is a subjective analysis that we're going to consider on a case-by-case basis for certificates of appropriateness. But I do feel some obligation both to prior applicants and people who have tried to save homes like this, and future applicants and people who try to save homes like this, to make sure that we have some consistency in the weight that we give the economic impact, the economics of all of this, right? Because you're right, what we don't want is for somebody to buy a historic structure and say, oops, I'm out of money, now it's time to tear it down, right? Because that's what the economic analysis is. And I think that's why, by the way, that the certificates of appropriateness are issued on a case-by-case basis in a subjective manner. I am not a construction expert and am not a historic home expert by any stretch of the imagination. But I think Mr. Lilly put it right. I think the thing that we ought to most significantly concern ourselves is conformance with the character of the preserving this historic resource to the extent it's a historic resource. And certainly the fact that there's, if you go back and look at the other entries in the contributing structures, there's paragraphs and paragraphs of why they're contributing. And this one says it is a contributing structure, right? Which seems to vitiate in favor of it maybe not being quite as contributing as others around it might be. But nonetheless, you know, making sure that it fits into the character of the neighborhood is what concerns me. And I think that if we can't save something historic, making sure that what we're putting back is consistent with that character. And that's the reason that we have this case-by-case analysis. I don't have an answer to the economic issue part of the analysis, and I don't know how we keep from setting that precedent other than by looking at prior times that we've done this and we've done these analyses. And it sounds like, if I'm remembering correctly, we've only had one.
Well, and I think that's why we have there's 9 prongs.
Right.
So I think it's even most likely clear within our ordinance that economics alone should not be your driving factor. So if all 8 prongs were absolutely not, staff thinks that this should not be torn down, and these are our reasons, but then the economic one is the argument, then you all would need to kind of take a serious look at that. But that's why they are case by case, because they really do have to be looked at from like a much more holistic point of view. You know, is it extremely visible from the roadway? Is it sitting in between 2 other existing structures? And what are some of those factors? Has it been added onto in ways that have degraded its ability or its contributions that it once had? So that's why there are 9 prongs and not just one consideration. So I offer that. Just the economics alone shouldn't be the only factor.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember about the economics is this is not necessarily a binary analysis, right? This applicant could, in the face of, for example, our denial of this certificate of appropriateness, say, forget this, I'm going to walk away from this project and put it on the market and sit vacant and become a blighted property and have create and cause all kinds of other problems. So I think, you know, it would not be fair to assume that in the event that we denied the certificate of appropriateness, they're going to go forward with what we all think from where we sit they ought to do to preserve historic resources or whatever it might be. So I just feel obligated to point that out.
I've got a question to the architect. When you took your samples on the exterior, since it was a 1930s building, were you expecting to find sand and lime, which was the most common building materials in the 30s, and not asbestos?
So for clarity, the samples were taken by Paragon.
Yep.
Asbestos.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Paragon.
Right. They do a lot of Charlottesville as well. So I let them do the drilling and actually way back. So I can't speak to what they were expecting to find, but with asbestos, the only way to determine if it's asbestos or contains asbestos is to take a sample and send it to a lab and have it tested. You cannot tell on site.
No.
So you never guess, you always test.
Yep. Is there electrical in that knob and tubing?
Now, at some point, some of the electrical work was done apparently without permit, and that was, they had some arcing problems. That was the first thing the owner had to fix, just to be safe for them to go and visit
it has some significant electrical problems as well. And again, a lot of this work, as Tim mentioned, was not done by code.
No.
That was done without a permit, I should say.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work does not meet code and should be suspect.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you found asbestos in the exterior of it, because that was not the common exterior stucco back in the 30s. It was sand and lime.
Correct, and so if you read through the historic tree district, synthetic is often, I think in the definition of synthetic, it includes asbestos.
You know, and I was curious if the tree streets, to address your point, had any restrictions or covenants regarding new architecture, you know, building requirements. Because I know that could help existing homeowners try and maintain that aesthetic value
So
of the neighborhood.
we're going to talk a little bit about, I've had some discussions with staff about, and Nigel and I have talked some about the historic districts in the city and the existing historic districts, and the fact that there's not, unlike some other historic districts in other areas around us, there's no architectural review. I think based on some of the feedback that Nigel has relayed to me that he's gotten from the community, I have asked and plan to ask when we get to commissioners' correspondence for staff to give us a little education about what that looks like in some other places and how architectural review works in historic districts, so that we can either as a planning commission or as part of the comprehensive plan process make some educated decisions about some of that stuff.
And thank you for that. You know, for instance, in our neighborhood, there's certain restrictions, covenants, guidelines. You know, you can't have sheds within 16 feet
Right.
of front and center of the home. So I'm just curious if covenants and restrictions are still applied in the tree streets outside of the historical guidelines, since we don't have an architectural review board. There may be current covenants or restrictions that would dictate future style.
Yeah, so I would think, you know, the setback, so like the shed example, for example, I think is a city ordinance that relates to setbacks and structures and fences, and I remember this only because we had a discussion about fences at some point.
Yeah, and if a neighborhood does have covenants and restrictions, that is not something that the city enforces, so we typically don't even have those.
Right, and so the covenants, of course, are part of the deed, and so that would be up to the other folks to whom, gosh, I'm trying to remember my property class from my first year of law school, but whoever is the beneficiary of the covenant has to enforce those covenants. Anyways, yeah, so I say all of this to say this is an issue that has Nigel helpfully brought to my attention recently, and it's something that I have asked staff to sort of help get us educated about, because I know almost nothing about it. So educate me about it at least, so that we can start having more informed discussions about some of these issues as they move forward. But yes, I mean, there are certainly areas in the city where there are either public or private restrictions currently in place that are more restrictive than I think I'm correct about this, that are more restrictive than what the ordinances require. And I suspect, though I don't know, and I've never done any deed research, that's probably not true of most of the properties in the tree streets, because they were not developed as part of any part of plan of development or anything like that, where those covenants would have been tied to division. Right, so I know like in a lot of our newer neighborhoods, for example, there are covenants that wind up part of that process, because as they get developed, that's part of what the neighborhood conformity the neighborhood wants to create. But again, I couldn't say with these, but I'm just guessing that probably given the age, there's nothing like that.
Thank you.
It's just a observation, uninformed observation.
Add just one quick point there. It was our understanding of going through this process with the city, the owners are allowed to make additions and renovation changes to the existing structure, obviously with a building permit, but would not come under any kind of architectural guideline review. So if they wanted to tear out all the walls and put in floor-to-ceiling glass and paint it pink, they could.
Yeah, and that was the next question I was going to ask is, again, I don't know that we necessarily can think about this in a sort of a binary way, right? Because the next person could do any number of things that were non-conforming with the historic district that without, unless they violated some of the building maintenance codes and parked a bunch of cars in the yard or whatever, and that's the only one that I know of those because we see it in court all the time. But, so I think that's an important point and a good observation, and one that I was gonna try and make too, is there are other things that could happen to this piece of property that are very inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood, without any feedback or restriction by the city.
I'm gonna put on my realtor hat for a second. My heart hurts for you guys. Virginia is a caveat emptor state, i.e. let the buyer beware. This property was sold, I'm looking at the MLS, as is. The inspection seemed to have done after the contract was signed, but before ratified. I have folks from outside the state that are looking for Tree Street properties and nowhere else. I want to be in this Tree Streets. I mean, that's literally all they're looking for. I have concerns that we would be, I know they're case by case basis, but a precedent, if you knock down a Tree Street home and build something up, in my humble opinion, in that particular area and corner, I think it would actually look more attractive in that area. But I'm fearful of what that would mean for the next one and the next one. Gosh, my heart hurts for you guys. But I would struggle mightily with approving this for fear of what the next case would come to and what the next case would come to. And it's, and you got great people, and David Kirby gave you estimates on what it would cost. Those are real numbers, if not higher now, from when you had that done before. There's a no-win on this one for this. These new Waynesboro residents who are coming from out of town and wanting to build in the historic Tree Streets. But I would struggle with supporting the tearing down a house in that neighborhood.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've all made a lot of observations. Are we prepared? Are we prepared to have a motion one way or another? Shoot.
If that would be the case, is there no recourse then? If a house that doesn't have much historical significance as far as the aesthetic, and it's it's a place where we have to, when the lights go out, we have to go down around the house in the winter with a flashlight to get to the circuit panel, which is where you go in across this exposed rock, climb up into this area which is a dirt floor that's at a grade, and go get the circuit panel. I think just things about the house is just with no plan, just hodgepodge put together, and I just don't. I mean, if you look at things on a case-to-case basis, I can see that, anyway, there's just a lot of things about the house that just don't make any sense. And we do appreciate the Tree Streets. We love the house on Tree Streets. And we think that Jeff's plan and the construction would be top notch and within the character and a lot better than what's there now. And that's my opinion.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
I'll make the motion that we, let me put my glasses on here so I can read, that we approve the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the contributed structure at 737 Walnut Avenue.
Do we have a second?
I second.
I just want to be clear that it is with the condition that was included in the packets about the
Yes.
building back per the.
Yes.
Design.
Yeah.
Yeah, the certificate as, the motion is for the certificate as proposed
Proposed,
with
yes.
the restrictions placed on it by, as suggested by staff. All right, we have a motion, we have a seconded motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, and I heard, I know we had 1, 2 ayes, 3 ayes. Mr. Lee, how did you vote?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion is going to carry 4-2. All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have public comment period for items not on the agenda.
We do not have anyone signed up.
Do not have anyone signed up. Excellent. Next up, we have matters from staff.
I just want to remind everyone that we are diligently working to collect citizen input and feedback for our comprehensive plan planning process. There are paper copies of the survey that are at the library. You can also come by 230 South Wayne at our offices to get paper copies if you need them. There's the website, the QR code gets you to the survey. I think we've had roughly over 300 responses to our survey, and so we're really pushing that. So I'd encourage you all, as planning commissioners, to share that wide and far with all of your networks and encourage people within your neighborhood to fill out that survey. We have some brochures and some flyers and some different materials at our office. So if you know of places where get a lot of high foot traffic and you'd like to take some of those pamphlets or some of those flyers, please come get them from us. We're just really interested in continuing to get feedback from the public at this stage of the plan. I think that's all I have.
All right, commissioners' correspondence and communication. So as I previously mentioned, we have had Nigel brought to my attention my ignorance to how and why historical districts function and how they impact architectural review and new development in our historical districts in the city. So based on that and some other things that I've heard, I have asked the staff to give us a relatively brief overview at our next regularly scheduled meeting of how that all works, specifically with respect to architectural review and the standards that we have in historic districts and how both new development and renovations complies with those standards. And so they helpfully have agreed to educate us on that issue. I don't know if there's any specific, sort of within that framework, any specific things that any of us would like to hear about. And if you can't think of them right now, maybe you can communicate them to staff not the night before the next meeting, but sometime before the next meeting, so they have plenty of time to prepare. But I think it's an issue that certainly I know based on my conversation with Nigel that he's gotten some feedback from when it comes to certain historic areas of the city, and whether it be in the comp plan or whether it's something that we need to take action on, I do think it's something we at least need an education on. So I've asked staff to do that.
Yeah, and we are happy to do that, and we'll bring that back to you at your next meeting. I also want to point out that any direction that we go in creating ordinances or possibly creating architectural review boards or any steps that we're going to take really should be recommendations in our comp plan. And so in this gathering, like input gathering phase from the public, like we really want to hear, what does the public think about our historic districts? Like, is that an issue that is important to our community? So again, I would encourage you to have those people that have provided that feedback to you, have their voices as part of the comp plan, because all of that is what's going to guide these recommendations. But yes, we're happy to provide some general, here are some levers and tools local governments have to kind of control, manage, create compatibility within their historic districts. And so we'll be able to talk briefly about that, take a lot of questions also, and get you additional information if you need.
Yeah, and I think my primary aim, at least, is for me, is to be able to speak meaningfully about this as part of the comprehensive plan. But ultimately, once we know what we don't know, or I know what I don't know, then we can have a more informed discussion about it.
That sounds great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else in terms of correspondence and communication?
No, and this is just my personal opinion, I find it somewhat ironic that the Street District is considered historic since it's built on a Civil War battlefield, which is more historic. And if y'all could include some of that research into y'all's report, I'd be curious to know about that, more than I already know, that those houses were built on a battlefield where Custer and his troops fought Confederate forces. So you can see the irony in that. It's kind of like Wilderness down in Orange. They've built over top of most of the battlefield down there that was fought on. So we talk about maintaining history and maintaining historic preservations, yet that's a prime example of wiping it off the face of the map. And that's just my personal opinion and reflection.
Well, I'm grateful that Nigel and Will have asked for that information, because I know a lot of my neighbors are really curious about architectural standards really throughout Waynesboro. So frankly, I'd be excited and interested to hear beyond the historical
Yeah, I think that's
capacity.
That's a good point, because I think they can dovetail, but they can be very separate. So we're happy to talk about ways, because there's similar levers and similar tools that could effectuate both. So we'd be happy to kind of split them out a little bit, or at least shed light on the ways that they could not only be helpful for historic districts, but, they're used for entrance corridors. A lot of localities, create guidelines for what structures need to look like within certain corridors. So we could talk about all of those things, yeah.
And maybe add beautification to entry corridors as a topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I would also suggest, I was saying that y'all speak with a University of Virginia. They are a World Heritage Site. They have an architectural review board for the village that works in conjunction with the City of Charlottesville's Architectural Review Board. Now, if you really want to get into what a review board does and looks at, the structures over there are much older than what they are in the tree streets. So it'll give you a good basis and some good knowledge.
I don't have any correspondence.
Leslie, I think you should go to Jamestown.
I need to
No,
get a
that's just
master's
a
in history before my next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by October, can you get your, get a PhD in history, master's in urban planning? And not to be flip about your observation, I do want to make sure that we confine this. A lot of this is going to happen as part of the comp plan. My intention was for us to sort of have an understanding. My intention and the discussion that I had is to understand what historic districts we have in the city, what restrictions those historic districts place on construction in those districts, particularly with respect to architecture. I don't know that we necessarily want to get into a spirited debate about the merits of particular historic districts or anything like that, where we're all going to have our own observations about particular historic districts. I think the place to start is what are they and what do they do? And then we can explore some of these issues.
Oh, I agree with you, Will. What are our historic districts and what do we currently have? And then compare it to what others have.
Sure, absolutely.
Are we headed down the right path?
Absolutely.
I don't have any further correspondence.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you saying I'm being flippant?
No.